she came to me and she said, I want my mother. I want a visit from my mother. That every Sunday she looks at me like,
where's my mom? Sure.
Every Sunday that child looks at me and she's like, without saying any word, looks at me and say, Agezanga na this week.
But there's times when my wife just wants to tell me about her day. And she goes. And she, she'll go into the corners, the cracks, and, and immediately I need to catch myself. Because everything in me that's masculine is like, and where's the logic in this thing? Where are we going? Logic. My dad didn't drink, didn't smoke. I didn't see him cheat on my mom. I'm going to drink, I'm going to smoke, I'm going to cheat on people.
Hi guys, I welcome you again into Men Speak podcast. It's been a minute, it's been a while. But all things work together. We are here. So today is one special episode. I know for you guys it's a happy new year. We are right through the year, but it's a happy new year. I'm glad that you are here, you are watching again, guys. Thank you for your love and support. Thank you for everything that you do for us. We really appreciate it. And I do not take it for granted that you sit there and you watch, your data, right now you can just call a friend, WhatsApp a friend and say, hey, she has dropped finally after, but we'll get there. Yeah, today's a very special episode, guys. You know me, I don't like wasting time and talking about a whole lot of things, but today we are in a different setup. Totally different setup. The setup that I always watch and I'm like, hey, but I'm just glad that we are here. We're in a different setup altogether. We're not at M Studio today, but we are in one of those places where, when you guys watch it, you're like, hey, man. We're trying. What do they want from us? But it's a beautiful space. So we are right at that husband studios, and I'm so grateful and I do not take it for granted that we are here. I'm very happy that we are here. I mean, this was supposed to happen when, but I knew, I'm a very patient woman. I knew that, it will happen. And I am so grateful that we are finally here. Today we have That Husband podcast. That's how we call you, by the way. That guy, man, That Husband podcast. Oh, the yellow bag, yes, that one. So we are here. We're going to have a great conversation with him. Blaque, there's a lot that I can say. I've met him maybe once, twice. In person. In person. Yes. But because of what I learned behind the mic, sometimes I feel like I've met you a lot of times. So that's what the channel does to us, because we sit and we eat and we go back, and some of the things we cannot fathom because it's just too much. We can't digest, but you have to, and it's a lot, because when we watch it, you want to watch episode after the episode. But to be honest with you, this is a platform that we appreciate. I mean, this is about That Husband podcast on Men Speak.
Yes.
It is what it is. Yes. So I really like to thank you for coming. And you came. You came here.
I did.
It's because it's so strange, because I'm sitting on the other side and it's you and you're like, But I'm really thankful for this opportunity to come and have a conversation with you, an open conversation that we can learn from, an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity. Men Speak, I always say that I try not to say a lot because I can, right? But I try not to say a lot, and just because this is a platform for men. This is a platform where you say, speak. Kuluma lento, often we kuluma.
Yeah.
Say what the burning issue inside of you that you want to share with the world. Because the beauty of YouTube is that it's the world.
It is.
We're reaching the world. There's a world out there that is going to receive this.
Sure.
And we're just hoping it's going to be a beautiful one as always.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming.
No, it's a pleasure.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
I never asked this, but I just want to ask
Sure.
you.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks for, again, just the opportunity to come on your platform.
Thank you.
In fact, for those who are watching, we had an episode together, or we have an episode together on my platform as well. And part of that is just me believing in the work that you're doing, and just your passion, your heart behind that work, and just your consistency, and not just consistency online, but on the actual ground, So man, I'm really honored. It's such a privilege for me, to whatever contribution I can make. That I am part of your journey, So thank you for that. Truly, truly appreciate that. A bit about me. Sure. Yeah. When you say a bit, your brain goes to.
That's what happens to me.
There's all of this, right? Anyway, I think maybe just some key highlights and important things about me. Man, I love Jesus. I love Jesus. I love my wife. I love my kid. And I love being a creative.
That's evident, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Right? So in order of importance, I love Jesus, and the love of Jesus enables me and empowers me to love my wife. How I love my wife empowers me to love my child, and how my family cares for me and how I love them empowers me to show up as a creative in the world, and anything else that I do, So I, again, with the help of God, my family, I run a company called Company X Films. So that's where we're shooting from here. And it's me, my wife, and our partner Grace. So we run Company X Films, and we run this podcast. We have my wife's podcast, and we shoot documentaries, and we want to get into the film space eventually. So that's what we do. Also, pastor. People don't tend to think so from how I look.
And they don't know, eh?
So I'm also a pastor, and and I think grew up in Tembisa, so Mfana Selokshin, 1632 through and through, born and raised, right? And I studied film. That's where I met my wife, and I love creativity, and I love showing up.
We can tell.
Yeah. In fact, this bracelet was made by my kid.
Oh, beautiful! It's colorful.
So
actually, maybe that's how you make her feel.
Yeah. So when I put it on this morning, she was so happy. That,
that's beautiful.
It's not just the creation that I threw in the bin, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna make it work. Make it work. So thank you for making it.
It's bright and beautiful. Yeah.
So that's a bit about myself. There's a lot that I could still say, but just to kind of give you the highlights, that's who I am.
Sure. The biggest question that I always, when I'm busy advocating for you out there, like, hey, because I think what That Husband podcast has done for me, my work, I tell them that, okay, you don't understand me, you don't understand what I'm saying. There's actually That Husband podcast.
Sure.
Then I start to tell them, it's men gather there, and if you want any topic you want to know about, I'm telling you, go. And they're like, please send it, WhatsApp it to me because I'm going to forget or anything. Because that's what That Husband does for our podcast does for us. It's that portal of reference for us, that we can like say to other men, other women. Because I also tell women about it too, that please go and watch, especially if we're having a topic and we're not getting anywhere. I'm like, okay, maybe you need to hear this from a man's perspective. Then it will help you, So then they come back. Trust me, I've never refer anyone to That Husband podcast and they come back and they give me not that they're buying my face, but instead they will be telling me more. I'm like, okay. So they actually enjoy that portal and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know, I love it. I love it. So the biggest question that I always get is, why That Husband podcast? Like I always say, I always try to say that line of yours that I remember that you're just failing forward. You're a husband.
Yes. Husbands who know better do better. And we want to continue failing forward.
Yes. Sure. Because husbands are just there and in their caves. Though Jabuzwane tried to corrected me, that why sometimes we just go to the cave, But at the end of the day, I think most probably you just felt like, no, man, we cannot stay inside the cave, We need to be able to live outside the cave. There's nothing wrong with going to the cave. I've actually learned that now. Before I used to think the cave is the most, because I read that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, And I was like, hey, okay, this cave thing, I don't like it. But now as I grow and I mature, I realize that the cave is actually a safe space for you guys, for you to go in there. So maybe just tell us a little bit about the concept That Husband podcast so that people can understand.
Yeah, sure. That's great. And it's great because I think it really opens up my heart to why I started this, So 2 reasons, and I can elaborate on those 2 reasons. But the first reason is because it's been in my life the longest, is my own relationship with my father.
Right.
So I, again, came from what I would consider very humble beginnings. And by humble, I don't mean, because, sometimes when we speak about humble beginnings, we think of like material things. Yeah, materially, we weren't that like well off, but humble in the sense that, like, man, we were a close-knit family, So my mom was 15 when she had me. My father was 20, right? So there were, my dad had just finished matric. Yeah. My mom was still in high school when they had me. And in fact, my mom is so skinny, was skinny, that she didn't even know that she was pregnant, until like 7 months. Abokoko baselokishini, but konokala manzi, right? And then some of those old ladies went to my grandmother to tell her, to advise my mother to abort me. And by God's grace, my grandmother said, hell no, it's not going to happen. I remember this one time I was preaching from the 6th commandment, thou shalt not kill. And then I just referenced my own story, that had my mother killed me, man, I would not be here, and I thank God that my grandmother said no. And, my mother wanted to keep me, my father wanted to keep me, and growing up Elokshini, especially where I grew up, you kind of hear a lot of these stories. Teenagers fall pregnant, and then the quick solution is abortion. And then you think, man, the potential of that life. And I know this topic is probably more complex than I'm making it be, because there's other people who think I had to do it, because if I don't, there's a whole lot of other things that will be compromised about the quality of the life that child would have. But I'm fortunate in that sense that did not happen to me. So when I think of humble beginnings, I think of a closely knit family. I think of 2 teenagers, in the 80s who had the whole world to themselves, and they could have easily said, let's get rid of this, But man, they decided not to. And both my parents have like totally different upbringings. My mom grows up in a very closely knit family as well. Parents are together till death. Sure. So when I was born, my grandparents were together, and they were together, 11 kids, sure. Right? And they stayed together. Yeah, when I grew, I later found out, they had their own issues. But overall, my mother comes from a family that was closely knit, believed in the Lord, just was a good family. My father comes from the total opposite, But when they come together, my father's like, man, I want our story to be different, I want my family to be totally different, And so they get together, they have me, I'm born, and then we grow up together, essentially, skula sonke. Because they gay kids, I'm a kid, skula sonke, there was a point.
I can imagine. Yeah. I can really see, I have a picture.
Yeah. There was a point my mother took me to school. You know, she was proud because when she gave birth to me, she stopped going to school. And then I think a couple of years later, I went back. And then there was a point, I was in grade 1. My mother was in matric. Still uniform, so too, you know.
Oh, what a beauty.
Yeah. In fact, I think it was at that point, still uniform sonke, and then she was just like, this can't happen. I'm gonna leave school, right? And she stopped going to school in matric, and then matriculated with me when I was in matric. When I did my grade 12, my mother said, "Angeke umatriculated qala before me." So we did matric together, right? So I was in grade 1, she was in matric, and then fast forward 12 years later, we both in matric and we matriculated together. But that's what I think when I think of humble beginnings, you know. And so we come from that. And then my dad is present in all respects. You know, physically he's present. Like my father is in our home. You know, when I look at my friends around Laben Klala Corner and my cousins, I'm the only one with a present father, you know. And he's not just present nje, but he's presently doing positive and healthy things with me, you know. He's discipling me, he's training me, he's teaching me, he's rebuking me, you know, he's molding me. Spiritually, he's there. You know, my father takes us to church. My father prays with us. At that point, there's just 3 of us. It's me, him, and my mom. He prays with us every night, you know. And the little we had, he's like, man, God is going to get us out of this, you know. So we moved from living in the back room, to finding umkukunyana sibane stand, you know. From that we moved to a garage. From the garage we moved into a 4-room house. From the 4-room house,
stories.
you know, we moved to the burbs. But this whole time, what I'm seeing is a father who's praying. I'm seeing a man who's loving his wife actively in front of me and the watching community, you know, in a community where men are told, you know, but man, we're not really there. And you know, we say that, but not realizing some of the scars that they came from. You know, like my father did not necessarily grow with his father pouring into him. He lived 2 houses away from his father, right? He saw his father. They had some form of relationship, but at least from what he had told me, his own father did not actively disciple him, did not actively grow him, nurture him to become the man that he was. His father had some form of influence, but not as much as he would have needed, you know? So he's there saying, man, my story is going to be different, you know? Prayerful man, takes us to church. Financially, he's there. You know, I saw my parents by budget in front of us. You know, so it wasn't a no involved. You know, so they sat me down, man. You know, this is how much I earn right now. Your mother is not gonna go work. She's gonna stay at home, look after you, look after the home. This is what we're gonna do with it. You know,
so
I'm a kid. Yeah, you know. In fact, at some point, my parents were called out by our extended families that they're involving me too much in their affairs, you know. But man, it was just forward thinking by both of them to say, this is what parenting is. We need to raise this kid, and he needs to see what life is, you know. And so they involved me, obviously appropriately. There were things that I later found out, you know, that they shielded me from those things. But my dad was there. My dad was my hero. My father was my hero. I wanted to grow up and be like him. Community hero, you know, looks after other people's children. That was our thing as well. You know, my dad is a leader there. I want to play drums because he's playing drums, you know, but he's gathering boys in the community, little girls, and keeps them from, you know, just going into drugs and other stupid things.
On another level.
Yeah. So that's who he is. And I'm seeing this. I'm seeing how other boys admire him as a man. And I'm like, man, that's what being a leader is, you know? And he would have real conversations with me, you know, why am I supposed to walk into a room and greet people? And because that's what a man does. That's what you do. You don't walk into a room arrogantly. You submit yourself. You greet. You know, and so you don't go in demanding stuff. That's not what a man does. You know, he's teaching me all the stuff. We're driving to school, and it's like 6 o'clock. Konukoko Haika is the Strattin, my dad is the one who's gonna stop the car. You know, I'm like, man, this chick might kill us. And he's like, man, if that's the thing, then we died doing a good thing. Yeah. Angisho my saying funda na belu. This chick is gonna kill us, Dad.
That's funny.
And for him, it's like, man, if that's the last thing we do, then we go out in glory. You know, we die wanting to help somebody else. So I'm growing up with that, you know, and I'm seeing that, and I'm seeing him just, you know, progressing, loving my mom. My mom is there. Like, I see other women with either their husbands or their boyfriends, and I'm like, man, these women are not as happy as my mom. Like, my mom is happy, you know. She's cared for, she's looked after, you know, she's protected, she feels safe. I'm like, man, everything in me wants to get married. You know, I'm like, I'm going to get married. Why? Because I'm seeing how marriage is done. And then fast forward, I turn 15, you know, and everything crumbles.
Sure.
And the things don't crumble gradually, you know, it's literally overnight. Sure. One day I go to school, come back, our house is getting sold, you know. And bear in mind, like, this is the house for the past 15 years we've been dreaming about together as a family, right? Behlala a back room. Elokishini thina sithi amakhosta angazi ukuthi eval nithi inama room, right? But behlala ekhostini, right? In the back room, we moved from that to a shack.
It makes sense, ghost, because you're hiding.
Yeah. Right? So from that, we moved to a shack to a garage to a 4-room house, and now we finally live in our dream house. Sure. And we're in the burbs. And life has happened, right? And all this time when we're moving, and I don't feel a sense, Guti asnama alekai, whatever. My parents are providing, you know, and providing within reason as well. When they can't do something, they're not just like, oh, we can't do this thing, but they're like, man, you know our budget,
yeah,
you know, so we can't do this thing because there's not enough money. We can save, we can, etc., etc. So this is like the first time in my life where my world was turned upside down, literally over, nice. You know, it's not even it was the morning. I went to school in the morning, came back at 2:00, 2:30, and we're selling everything, right? Sure. Where's my mom at that point? She's kicked out of the house. Why is she kicked out? Why are you selling the house? Why are we selling spoons? Why are we selling CDs? I'll explain, right? I'm 37 this year. I haven't gotten that explanation, sure. Right? And that was the last time I actually had like an in-depth conversation with my father. Sure. I think it was the last time where I saw him actively mold me. That was the last time I saw my family together, you know. And so then from age 15, I finish high school, go into varsity. In varsity, I actively make the decision to not be like my father, you know, because I look back and I'm like, man, this was my coach. He trained me from age 1, you know, 0 to 15. And he was like, man, this is what a man is. Now, finally, I'm becoming a man, and I want to get in the field and play this game of becoming a man. And I look to the sidelines. My coach is not there. You know, he's not even in the grandstands. He's not on the sideline, grandstands. Agea stadium. Yeah. So I'm like, sure. Man, so who am I going to play this game with? Yeah. You know? So by the time I get to varsity, I'm like, you know, if my dad could flip, let me be everything he's not. And I think I say that because it's an important thing for men to know, that we are always looking for a voice. We're always looking for a leader to emulate, to, you know, model our lives after. And so we can either have healthy models or we can have unhealthy models, but there's no middle ground, right? There's no middle ground for boys and girls. But for a boy, that's the perspective I'm speaking from, you know. So I didn't have my father, who was a positive role model. He flipped on me. So now I'm like, okay, my dad doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, and he then woke up one day and he just lost his mind. Okay, so logically, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna smoke. Maybe my life will turn out differently. Sure. But even that's such a flawed way to think. It's illogical to think that, sure. Right? But it just demonstrates the amount of hurt, the amount of trauma, that now I am defining myself by what I'm not. I'm defining myself by who I'm not. You know, at that point, my father is not present in my life. I can, and justifiably so, define myself by who he is if he's around, because he can correct that. He can help say to me,
no,
here's where the line ends. Be like me until here, right? Or don't do that. Or maybe I see what you're trying to do, but that's not how I did the thing. So when he's not there, I'm like, how can I define myself by what's not there? You know? And I'm trying to then go the opposite. So then I just give myself over to, drinking as much as anything that's drinkable, I'm drinking. Anything that's smokable, I'm smoking, And then I'm like, man, first 15 years of my life, I never heard any scandals about my dad cheating on my mom, whatever. I'm just going to go date anything and anyone that wants to be dated, right? At the same time, right? Yeah. So I'm just trying to go the opposite, but only in hindsight, I realized, man, I was just trying to heal myself. I was trying to deal with my pain. I have a scar. And instead of actually letting that scar heal, I'm just pouring salt on it because I'm like, let's just do that, you know. How do we peel this thing off? Because that's how it's going to heal quick. But I'm like, no, healing needs you to be patient. And you need to have some form of medical assistance. You need a doctor. If I had older men around me, if I had older brothers, if I had more mature voices of men speaking into me.
So you're the only child?
No, there's 3 of us, but the other 2 are girls. And there's a 9-year gap between me and my middle sister, and a 17-year gap between me and my little sister. So at that point, I'm firstborn. So he was my North Star of how to become a man. So he left. So now I'm like, man, there's no North Star. I have to figure this thing out myself. And so then I just go wild, and that happens for my whole varsity career until I graduated. And then when I graduated, the second reason of why I started this podcast happens, and Jesus finds me. So the first part of my reason for this podcast is all that I just explained. I did not want other black boys to have my story.
Sure.
And so then I thought to myself, how can I prevent that? Husbands play a very vital role. Fathers play a vital role, but there's many other fathers who are not in their children's lives. And I still want to speak to them. But before they leave the mother of the child, for whatever circumstances, man, let me speak to them while they're there. As husbands, right? And say to them, your role speaks into both the manhood space and the fatherhood space. So there's a whole lot of other things we can say about men who are not husbands or fathers. And there's a whole lot of other things we can say about men who are fathers or not husbands. Okay. But husbands speak to both. And so that's why I was like, man, I need to speak to husbands because I want to help them to stay, not leave their wives, not leave their families, so that there aren't any black boys who have the latter part of my story. I want black boys to be like how I was the first 15 years of my life. I attribute a lot of who I am as a man now to those first 15 years of my life with my dad. I think I have a high emotional intelligence because my father instilled that in me. He groomed that, he nurtured that, he discipled that in me. I think I'm aware of, how I treat my wife, largely because those first 15 years of my life, I saw it happening. So then after that, Jesus finds me, and he then, shapes my thinking and my world, and kind of refines it, redeems it, and helps me to realize I can't define myself by my father's mistakes. I can't define myself by who he did not become. I need to define myself by who I am becoming in Jesus, and he's helping me with that. And so then fully gave my life to him, and he just, over the years, just corrected some of my flawed thinking, healed some of the pain that I had, brought a lot of men around me, who just spoke life, who shaped me in ways that I'm benefiting from now. Men who could help me see, I call it the unfortunate privilege of having the first 15 years of my life, which was a privilege. And the unfortunate part is the other part of the 15 years, So 15 till probably I was 22, So those years, 7 years, man, it was just rough of not having my father. And then, after that, I started the healing journey. So by the time I get here, I've been married that point, I've had the privilege of, living with my wife, and just seeing the amazing gift that she is to me, and then realizing, man, I want to have kids. I want to, grow a family, and I can pull from the first 15 years of my life with my dad, but I can also pull from, my current life with Jesus, and then that husband is born. So that's how the podcast was created. That's why the podcast exists. I think that husband ultimately is Jesus. The Bible describes him as the head of the church, the husband of the church, and he sets the most perfect model of what it would look like for anybody to be a husband. Sure. And he loves sacrificially. He loves unconditionally. I have conditions, right? And so he's helping me to throw my conditions away and love my wife unconditionally. When I think of myself as a sinner, I'm like, man, he was not confused about what he was dying for. He knew who I am. He knew how ugly I can be. He knows how terrible I can be. And yet he chose me, and he still chooses me. And that's what husbands are called to do. Right? Husbands are called to say, I know you're imperfect. I know you're going to hurt me, and I'm going to hurt you as well. But man, in my leadership, I need to die to myself and choose you every single day. And me doing that is not just for my wife. It's for my kids. It's for onlookers as well. Right? There's people who are seeing that. And I think that's why, there's all relationships are important, but I think marriage does occupy like a level, right, or a realm that's different from other relationships. Hence, God himself uses marriage as a metaphor for how he has a relationship with his church, So he will speak of himself as a mother. He will speak of himself as a father. But when he wants to define the core of his relationship with us, he uses himself as a husband, and the church being the wife. And so there is a level at which there's a special place that marriage occupies because of the influence that marriage can have on society. It's from marriage that families are born. It's from that couple, right? That we don't just create a family, but it's through that family we can create a neighborhood. It's through that neighborhood we can create a society and a world. And so I was like, man, we need to protect that gift
as much
as we can, because a lot of husbands are either being called trash, or feel suffocated because they know how to communicate, but there's just no space for them to communicate that stuff, right? So I'm like, how do we then make it normal and give them tools and give them language, give them perspectives of how they can communicate what it is that they're feeling, going through, what they're thinking, how to regulate themselves, so that they actually don't end up leaving or end up locking themselves in the cave forever, So the cave is good for a period of time, but you need to get out of the cave, love your wife, love your children, be the kind of leader that your society expects you to be. And so, in not so small of a nutshell, that's what that husband is. That's why we, still release an episode every week.
Oh, man, we appreciate that. We really appreciate that. Wow. A lot of things come through my mind, especially because I was with the ladies last week. So last Saturday we had a session with the ladies, and there's this one particular lady that was like, my husband just doesn't talk, guys.
Sure.
Now, I'm listening to her. I'm listening to how she is telling us how the husband doesn't talk.
Sure.
Why is Ashana is doing this and that and that and that? Then I hear, yep. And I said to her, I'm listening to you narrating, to us about how. Now I'm asking myself, is this how you ask him?
Sure.
To open up.
Sure.
And I told you straight that then that man is not going to open up.
Yeah.
If this is how, then why? I'm like, no.
Sure.
He's never going, trust me, he's never going to open up if this is how you approach him.
Sure.
So I think sometimes as women, we do not get this approach story, if I have to say. this episode of approach, we do not get it, because I think there's a lot that we expect from you guys.
Yep.
So can we just dig a bit on this approach? Because I was listening and all I could hear was approach.
Sure.
Because they want their husbands to open up.
Sure.
But their approach, and this has been preached many times, but I think, can you just dig on that?
Yeah, that's good.
And just tell us what happens immediately when I want you to open up, but my approach is wrong.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So the how, which is the approach, is one thing to address. But I think what also gets affected in the how is the what, right?
Oh.
And so how you approach me as a husband, and if you're coming with force. And so in this instance, it's this woman who's frustrated and, it's going to affect the what. What is she actually asking me? So and it's going to affect her.
So you don't hear it immediately.
No, I won't. I won't even hear what the what is.
Yeah.
For me, the approach is going to, it's either going to send me into my internal cave. It's going to force me to also raise my fist because now you're shouting. I want to shout and defend myself. But I think what it's doing to you as a woman, it's affecting your what? Because now you're just screaming. So you're not even thinking about what it is that you're saying.
Sure.
Because you just focused on your frustration and that's what's coming out. That's what's driving the thing. And so I say to women, we need to address your how, right? Because your how is affecting your what. But to get to the man, you need to address your what, right? Because yes, we can fix again your approach. And then uzu tobile, and you're speaking politely and you're speaking well, and your tone and your approach and your voice is decent, it's okay, it's welcoming, but then we haven't fixed your what. Because as men, I think we speak. I think we communicate. I think we open up. But our friends know how to press certain buttons, and that's the what. They know how to press certain buttons, So if I come into a space with my friends, and the first thing they ask me is, so how are you feeling? I'm like, feeling manje. I'm feeling warm, But I can walk in that same room and my friends say to me, but before Shalapants, we're actually having a conversation about what is anger. Okay?
Right.
So as a man, I'm like, oh yeah, sure. It's a philosophical question. It's a question that forces me to, wrestle with the thing. I'll answer the thing, right? Before I even sit down. Or I can even say, as I sit down, what is anger, right? Because you knew what kind of buttons to press in me. And so when I've told you what anger is, and we've philosophized the thing, and we've thought deeply about what anger is, now you can ask me direct. So why do you feel anger? Now
you're reflecting on your own words.
Because exactly, I've given you what my idea of anger is. I've given you what my ideal, my worldview, my philosophy around anger is. You've kind of touched that part of a man that makes him a man. We are explorers, we are risk takers, we are people who want to always be challenged mentally. We want to explore things at a logical level, we want to be problem solvers. So we it's not that we don't feel anything about the problem, but entertain how we solve the problem before we can tell you how we feel about the problem. When you're what, you want to know about how I feel about the problem first. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I need to think about what the problem is first. So touch that, press that button first.
Of the what?
Of the what is the thing that we're going to be talking about? Let me. We always say on my podcast when husbands are like, oh, my wife never gives me sex, and then we say, do you massage her heart? Do you massage your wife's heart? Right? So don't come there and think she's just going to be so excited to... Yeah. You are asking her to give you the most intimate part of who she is. And so you need to massage her heart from the time you wake up, Don't ignore her in the morning, uyavuka late, you know, where's my shirt? Ikuphi program, late, ngiyemsebenzini. And you leave the house, you forgot to kiss her, you get in the car, you drive off, she sends you a text because she's worried. I hope you get to work safe. You see it, you're panicking for your next meeting, you don't answer that text. At break time or whenever you have your lunch, you don't remember good you have a text because you still need to do work. You know, you come back, you're stressed from traffic, you get in traffic, somebody hits you at the back, now you're frustrated, you're dealing with that, you come home. And as a man, part of what helps us to relieve our frustrations is to be intimate with our wives. You come in and you like, oh, she's going to give me sex. And she's like, man, you've ignored me the whole day. I've sent you texts. I didn't know how your day was. Except, and now you haven't massaged my heart, right? And so we always say, man, massage your heart. Massage your wife's heart from the morning. Massage her during lunchtime. You know, send her flowers at work. All her friends are going to be so jealous. How can your husband? And that's going to make her gloat. That's going to make her feel happy. By the time you get home and you like, and then she's already ready for you, right? So in the similar way, and I'm simplifying this, massage my mind as a man. Oh. Massage my mind. Let's talk about the what before I can give you my heart, you know. There's I forgot who I was listening to. No, it's Tyler Stetson. And he was talking about different generations. And I think that also applies to the conversation of men and women. But he was saying that millennials, he's a church leader, and he was speaking about millennials, and he says we come from the generation that says, you know, capture my mind, I'll give you my heart. You know, right. When Gen Zs say capture my heart, I'll give you my mind, and I think that's what happens with men and women. Women say capture my heart, and then I'll give you my mind. Right? So if I appeal to my wife's heart, man, she opens up and then suddenly she has creative ideas and she gives me all the stuff. For me, if you want to know how I feel, capture my mind first, right? Ask me the what. Let's deal with the what. Press those buttons. We do it among ourselves as men, you know. We know that there's that guy who likes soccer in our squad, you know, and he has all the facts about soccer. If you want to know how he feels about soccer, man, ask him all the facts about soccer.
Facts.
Right? Then he'll tell you how he feels. And and you'll see it in him, you know? So I'm like, man, if you can massage your man's mind, right? If you shout at me, now going back to your approach, if you shouting at me, what closes? This. I get frazzled. I get confused. I withdraw, because then I'm like, yeah, it's not going to happen. She can't understand me. Therefore, how can she hear my heart? You know, because I feel confused here, and this closes. You know, everything else in me closes. You know, again, I think Temba Nduli. You know Temba. Yeah. Temba is in the medical field, and he says that the biggest sex organ in the man is his brain. Yeah. That's his brain. He
explained it very well.
That's our biggest sex organ. Right? Yeah. Men think that, you know, again, our privates might be the thing that we like. It's this big as the biggest sex organ in a man is my brain. So if my brain is not taken care of, man, it's hard for me to kind of give my heart. And I know those are very simplified, distinctions. Yeah. It's not that women don't want their brains to be taken care of. Yeah. No, you want your brains to be taken care of. But I would argue more so you want your hearts first to be taken care of. And I think for us, we want our minds to be taken care of before we can open up. Right? I even see it in my marriage, you know. I think I'm a man who has a very high EQ, right? So I think my emotional intelligence is quite high, and I think I can connect and relate with my wife. But there's times when my wife just wants to tell me about her day. And she goes, and she, you know, she'll go into the corners, the cracks, and, you know, and immediately I need to catch myself, because everything in me that's masculine is like, and where's the logic in this thing? Where are we going? My heart has to. Yeah. Before I even argue with Asfigi, I'm like, can you just explain that? I'm fine going wherever you're going, but just give me the map of what this thing is. What's the layer of the land here, right? Before we start now moving on this land. And so my heart has to capture my mind and say, "Let's calm down." We know that she's telling you about her day from how she experienced this day emotionally. So go there with her. Go there with her and don't try and make a logical argument here. Don't stifle the moment. Don't stifle the moment and say, "You're not making sense." Right? She is making sense. She's making emotional sense.
Oh.
And I know that as somebody who has a high EQ. I believe I do. Right? So I'm like, okay, we're having an emotional conversation here. Don't try and put mental logic in the thing. Just feel it. Don't listen. Feel this conversation out, right?
Just flow.
Feel the conversation and flow with the thing, right? And so anyway, long way to say. I think wives need to watch the how for the sake of understanding the what for themselves, because once you mess up with the approach, my what is out the window, your what is out the window, and as men, we then shut up. And we're not going to hear anything. We're not going to, listen to anything else that you say. So, yeah.
I also wanted to just deeply go back to the hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
When eventually your father leaves.
Sure.
Sure. And I just want us to go there and just deep on that. Because I believe that's a space where now, because you decided to do all these things, you decided to go there. So some men don't go there and they go straight into that feeling that there's no life without this guy.
Yeah.
I just want to take my life.
Yeah.
Why am I living if this guy is not here?
Yeah.
My sense, my purpose, of being here.
Yeah.
It's him,
sure.
Because he's been everything. And all of a sudden, he's not there. It could be can be different cases, But I feel that feeling comes very fast,
sure.
To men as opposed as opposed to women.
Yeah. Sure.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, Tina, we were like, you call a friend,
yes.
Yes. You go to your pastor.
Yeah.
You go. We before we get to that point, we have maneuvered.
Yeah. You tried everything.
Exhausted all areas.
Yeah.
But with you, it's like I have no one.
Yeah.
This is the person that I looked up to.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting to being a man.
Yeah.
And he's not there to do it.
Yeah.
Why am I here?
Yeah. Sure. I'm gonna go a long way around to explain this with a story. But maybe let me put the punchline. Why we go there? It's because we problem solvers.
Oh.
So you guys wanna understand the process. Why am I hurt? What is this feeling? Why did he do this? Why did he do this to me? Why? Why? Not that we don't ask all those questions. But when you get to the end and you've asked, why did my dad leave? Why, Chomi's over right. Oh, no, Chomi, maybe look at it this way, whatever. But when we don't get a concrete solution, we feel like the very big part of who we are as problem solvers dies. So I can't solve this problem. So if I can't solve it, then the only way to resolve this thing is not to live. So I don't have to face the fact that I failed at solving this problem, right? I think that's what's at the core. That we can and I was doing the same thing. So I didn't get to a point of saying, man, I'm gonna end my life, or I'm just gonna just close myself in. But I was trying to find solutions. That's, so even that logic, my dad didn't drink, didn't smoke. I didn't see him cheat on my mom. I'm going to drink, I'm going to smoke, I'm going to cheat on people. It's because when I asked the questions, why would he leave? What did I do to him? What did my mother do? I couldn't find solutions. Sure. So then how am I going to solve this thing? Because I need to solve it. As a man, that's a big part of who I am. I'm a problem solver. Sure. And so I need to solve it. The only way I could solve it, I don't want to go kill myself. So I'm going to go drink, I'm going to smoke, I'm going to sleep around. Because that's going to numb the thing that reminds me, you don't have a solution for this thing. You don't have a solution for it, So I heard somebody say that those who are addicted to either sex, drugs, or alcohol, we don't look at the substance or the activity being sex as the problem. That's a solution. Sure. The underlying problem is deeper. And so in this case, the underlying problem is I am failing as a problem solver. So I'm going to find a solution to help me with this feeling of guilt or this feeling of failure. Therefore, I'm going to go drink, go smoke, go have sex. And so I think that's the punchline. Sure. How I realize this, it's probably second year of our marriage, me and my wife. And, I kick into my problem solver thing. She comes home, maybe she feels, day was hard, or, my wife used to be a professional musician, so I didn't get that gig, or I went to that gig, that person is not paying me, whatever the thing, right? Whenever she'd come with those issues, I'd kick into gear. The best way to love her is to solve the problem, right? And as a man, I think, man, that's the right thing to do. I need to solve the issues. My wife is upset. I need to make her happy. And so then I'd solve issues. Sometimes I can't solve the issues, whatever the thing is. But I realized, man, this is not really changing my wife's state. It's not really helping her or whatever, right? Fast forward, my wife has a gig in Cape Town. She's gone. I'm left at our apartment. And there had been a couple of break-ins where we were staying. Okay. And so then we were then kind of aware, even the apartment we were staying in, there were break-ins of the people that lived there before. Right. So now I'm like, hey, we need to hide things when we leave. If I go to the car wash or I go to the shops, let's hide our laptops, in the closet, under a pillow, under clothes, so that if somebody comes and robs us, they won't find our precious things, right? They can steal the TV, they can steal whatever, but our laptop, we work with our laptops, etc., etc. So anyway, she's gone. I'm left this weekend. I take the car to the car wash. I put the laptop in the closet. I hide it with blankets, with clothes, with stuff, right? I leave, go get the car washed. I come back. The laptop is stolen. They didn't break in. They didn't break the door. No windows were broken. It's as though somebody has a key. It's as though they saw me put the thing, because they went in, took the thing, put the clothes back, they're neatly folded. It's like a ghost walked in and stole the thing and left, okay? And then I'm like, but man, they didn't steal my watches. They didn't steal my shoes. They didn't, and it we were targeted. That's what it felt like. So now it's Saturday. My wife is coming back tomorrow. And I remember sitting in that apartment thinking feeling very violated, feeling very exposed, feeling like, man, this does not feel like home anymore. Somebody walked in without my permission, walked out, violated me by stealing our property and left. And it was actually my wife's laptop. And it was a very expensive laptop because she was using it for graphic designing. And so I just felt very violated. In that moment, I did not want a solution. I did not want anyone to tell me, we're going to find them, or let's take fingerprints, or, let's go get the cops, or insurance is going to pay for this thing. All I wanted was a hug because of how violated I felt. Sure. And it's in that moment I realized, man, all those other times when my wife comes to me and she just needs a hug, I'm quick to give solutions. Mm-hmm. I'm quick to say, let's fix it, And then fast forward, she comes back on Sunday, pick her up at the airport. The first thing I tell her, I'm like, man, bad news. Break-ins that were happened to us, and they stole your laptop. She breaks down. I give her a hug. We get in the car. We quiet, for like 30 minutes. Eventually, we start talking. And, we get over the fact that the thing is stolen. So then I tell her about my revelation. I'm like, man, I suddenly realized in that moment that every time you come home...
Took the laptop.
Being violated. I'm like, every time you come home and you just want a hug, every time you come home, you just want, to be heard. I'm quick to give you solutions. And the reason I do that is because I'm a problem solver. As a man, I need to make sure that this thing is resolved. And I somehow believe at the back of my mind, that's the only way I can exhibit love. That's the only way I can express that I love you. But I can express that I love you by just being in the moment with you without solving the problem. That's what your girls do. They don't quickly go to show me insurance, show me. They're like, "Sitshele kenzakaleni. What?
Tissue and
Bofila
everything.
kanjani?" Yeah, shalala, yeah. You know, and then like after 3 weeks, they'll give you the solution, right? But for men, we quick to give a solution. So all of that to say, I think when fathers leave, that part of us kicks in. We need to resolve this thing. My father and I's relationship is broken. As a problem solver, I need to solve this thing. But I can't solve it. My father has to solve it. He's the one who left. I can't solve it. I'm his son. In fact, in my own personal story, I knocked on my father's door throughout high school. You know, my dad left. I was in grade 9 when he left. Grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, first year of varsity. I'm the one saying, can we go out on a date? I'm not even trying to talk about why you left. I just want to have a relationship. Let's hang out, you know? Over and over, he would disappoint, not show up, give an excuse, etc., you know? And so everything in me wants to solve the thing. So if I can't solve the brokenness between me and my dad, well, the only other solution I have is, one, take my life, because then it ends the thing completely. Or I can go be an alcoholic, numb the pain. Or I can go smoke whatever is smokable, numb the pain. Or I can forget the hole in my heart, go sleep with a bunch of women. But all of these things don't fill that hole. All of those things don't help me. The person who's supposed to help me is my father. My father is the one who's supposed to come and say, man, let's resolve this thing. But if he's not, I'm going to try and resolve it. And unfortunately, I won't be able to unless he comes back. And for me, where the story does change, like honestly does change, is Jesus. He comes and resolves the thing, right? My dad left when I was 15. I only cried literal tears for my dad at age 27. Sure. I've been married, you know, I have a wife. I promised some woman that I'm going to look after her daughter. And then I'm in the shower. It's a random Tuesday. I think about my dad. I spend the rest, you know, of my shower just sobbing, crying. And I realized that I could only come to that point of actually releasing it because Jesus had begun the work of healing me, of restoring, of being the actual problem solver, you know. And that's why I'm like, man, if it wasn't for Jesus, I probably would have just given myself to, you know, part of another thing that was driving me in varsity is, again, come from very humble beginnings, you know, saw my dad and my mom build a life. We got to a certain point financially, and I was like, man, it's possible. If you just dedicate yourself to work, you can achieve stuff, you know? So that was part of my mentality when I got to varsity. Just dedicate yourself to work. You're going to make all the millions. You've seen it. It's going to happen. It's possible, right? So I probably sitting here would have been the guy who's like hella successful, you know, in terms of making money. But man, I would have had a long string of women whose hearts I would have broken countless times over and over and over and over and again. And I think the person who broke that cycle is Jesus.
Sure.
He broke that cycle, and he was just like, man, if you're going to be a man, right, here's what it's going to require. Look at the cross. That's what a man is, right? A man who goes and hangs. For people he rightfully knows don't deserve this thing, people who themselves are killing him. And yet he's saying to them, you guys don't know, with the very death that you are administering to me, I'm saving you. Right? Yeah. That's what true masculinity is. When you hear Jesus say that we need to be meek, right? People think meekness is weakness. They think being meek means, you know, you somehow are this weakling. But meekness is totally different from that. Meekness says, I acknowledge that I have power to destroy, but I'm willingly holding it back. That's what meekness is, right? It's different from weakness. Meekness is, I could destroy this thing in one go. And that's Jesus. You know, when I think of, I think it's Matthew 25, if I'm not mistaken, you know, verses 50, 51, 2, 3, and 4. Jesus is in the garden. He's about to get arrested. You know, Judas comes, gives him the kiss. Peter's there, pulls out his sword, you know, chops off the soldier's ear. And Jesus puts the ear back and says in the New Living Translation, "E Peter only papas," and he just puts back the ear, right? And then he says to Peter, listen, and the soldiers listening, and he says to them, listen, we're not going to win this thing by violence. And he says to them, if you think I want to win this thing with violence, don't you understand and know that right now, with one call, I can ask God, my Father, to bring legions of angels, 12 legions, in fact. A legion is 1,000. And he says, I can ask God now in one sweep to call 12,000 angels. And if you pull back and understand how much of a flex that statement was, one angel could have destroyed Jerusalem. 10 angels could have destroyed the whole of the Middle East. 100 angels, not even 1,000, not even a legion. 100 angels could have destroyed the world, right? A legion could destroy the universe. And Jesus says, that's what meekness
What
is.
a flex.
I could destroy all of you in one sweep right now. But meekness says, I will logically, I will intentionally, I will lovingly, graciously withhold all that strength for your benefit, for your sake, right? And when Jesus does that, I'm like, man, that's what manhood is. That's what manhood is. How can I take all the power that he's given me? If I want to be a problem solver, how can I then have the distinction between my wife needs a solution now or the solution that she requires is me hugging her? Only somebody who has meekness can do that, right? Because if I was just, we need to be strong, macho, I'd always be offering solutions. My wife would eventually leave because her heart would not be taken care of. The world around her would be solved. All her issues will be solved, but she would not be taken care of, and meekness allows me to do that. Jesus teaches me that, not the absence of my father, not me trying to go drink, me trying to smoke or taking my life or finding myself in the bed of every woman I meet. But it's Jesus who teaches me that. You have to be meek. Jesus says, man, you have to give of yourself. If there's one slice of bread that's left in the house, your wife and your daughter are eating that, you're going to bed hungry, right? If there's a couch, and that couch can only fit 2 people. My daughter and my wife are on that couch. I'm sitting down. How dare you say that as an African man? Yeah, I'm saying that as a man who's saved by Jesus, right? Who's not defined primarily by my culture. I love my culture, right? Hence my name. I'm black, to remind anyone who will forget that Jesus himself made me black, right? But the thing that defines my blackness is Christ. The thing that defines my Zuluness, my Africanness, the fact that I grew up in a township is Jesus. Yeah. He redeems all of those things. He shapes those things. He molds all of those things so that I can become the kind of man that he wants me to be, right? And so I'm like, man, I don't get to a point of calling husbands to fail forward if Jesus does not show me what failing forward is. Not because he fails forward, but because he gives me grace to fail forward. And he provides room for me to fail forward. Am I a perfect husband? My wife will tell you, you wake up at 3 a.m. and she'll tell you all my flaws. Am I a perfect father? By God's grace, my daughter in her 5-year-old brain thinks I'm perfect. But she's going to be 7, 8 and realize this guy's actually a loser, right? She'll realize that. But the thing that she will see is a father who's failing forward, is a father who's trying to get up, not because I have all the answers, but I met the perfect man. Yeah. And I know, and he's demonstrated that, and he's calling me to what manhood looks like, And lastly, I'll say this: he calls himself the bread of life. I'm just a beggar. I was abandoned by my dad. Right? I was homeless. In fact, literally at some point in my third year in varsity, I was homeless because my parents were fighting over their divorce and fighting over their house. My mother just said to me, "Windo tumdala, I'm trying to sort myself out. I'm not kicking you out, and I love my mother to death." But I could see just the pressure on her and the toughness that she was going through. And she was just like, man, for this season, you're going to have to stand on your own, right? And I'm there sleeping in my car, right, for a good 6 months. Right? Yeah. It got repossessed shortly because my dad stopped paying for it. Yeah. Right? But I slept in my car, right? So I was homeless. And so I know that. But who calls me home? It's Jesus who brings me in, who teaches me what it is to be a man. So I say that I'm a beggar who was homeless, and I'm pointing other men where the bread is. I found the bread. So as beggars, man, I'm not the bread, but I'll tell you where the bread is. You hungry to know what true manhood looks like? I'll take you to the bakery. Sure. Take you to the baker, in fact, right? So that we can have true bread. That's me. I'm just a homeless kid who's found a home, and I'm saying, man, come guys, there's a home, right? If you want to be a husband, if you want to be a man, if you want to be a good brother, if you want to be a son, you want to be a good friend, And there's a home that I found that will help you with all of that. So yeah, that's it, man.
You know, what I want to know is, what do you do when that inner child, that inner boy in you wants a hug?
Yeah.
What do you do when you feel like, today I miss my dad?
Yeah, sure.
What do you do?
Yeah, so on 27, I cried. I cried. And I think, to be honest, ever since, it's, I say that the scar that my father left will forever be there. But as the years have proceeded, though those needs have come out in different ways. So I had, I needed a conversation when my daughter was about to be born. And that's the last conversation, in fact, I had with my father. And that conversation kind of helped me every other time I needed a hug. I sit with my dad, so now I've been married for 5 years. He didn't come to my wedding because he didn't agree with how I got married, which is, through Christ. And he was like, man, I'm not going to support that. It's like, it's fine. You hadn't been there. I was honoring you by inviting you, but if you're not going to come, it's going to suck. It's cool. We've been walking with Jesus for some time now, and he's going to ease the pain and the scar, right? Anyway, so then fast forward 5 years into my marriage, my daughter's about to be born. I go and I chat to him and I tell him that I think, man, we've had history, and maybe at some point we need to iron out these things, for the sake of the next generation. I don't want my daughter to come into the world and there's still beef between us. And at that point, my father looked at me after me talking for an hour, and you could clearly tell I love talking. So I'm like talking and bearing my heart out. And he looked at me in the eyes and he said, man, like, that's your experience. And that's your definition of what a father was supposed to be. Where I'm sitting, I did everything to be a good father. And it's at that point, I felt such a sense of relief, right? Because the inner child in me, the boy, wanted his father to look him in the eyes and say, man, you're right. I did leave you. That sucked. I do acknowledge your feelings. But when my father said to me, I was a good father, I was like, oh, smart. Like, I'm dealing with a guy who needs Jesus as much as I need Jesus. His eyes are closed, his eyes are shut, and I don't know how else his eyes would be open. I'm sitting here not as a better man than him, but I'm sitting here as a man who submitted under the greatest man ever. And because of Jesus, my eyes were open. So my dad's eyes are never going to be open until he gives his life to Jesus. That gave me freedom to forgive him. That gave me freedom to, think of him as a human, right? Because he was just my father, who wasn't supposed to wrong me. But I'm like, he was a boy at some point. His father wronged him. He tried to do this thing. And for 15 years, guys, like, I'll never take that away from my dad. My dad killed it. He was a champion for the first 15 years of my life. Hero of note, right? And then after that, things flipped, right? I remember bringing my daughter home and laying her down, and I looked at her and I was like, maybe that's why my dad left. Because the pressure of having to raise a human, I'm like,
tell me about it.
We driving out of the hospital with my wife, and we like, maybe one of these adults are gonna stop us. Who are we? We are clowns raising a human.
You're joking.
I'm like, are these nurses serious? They're not gonna stop us. We get to the gate. I'm like, the security guard is like, so what gender? I'm like, this guy's not gonna stop us. Okay, maybe my mother-in-law and my mother are gonna stop us. So when I get home, all that pressure's on me, on my wife, obviously, and I'm like, maybe that's why my dad left. So that moment made me realize, man, my dad is a human. He has his own flaws. He has his own history. He has his own scars. He has an inner boy that's screaming out to his own dad. His dad died when I was born. Literally, the year I was born, my grandfather dies. So I'm like, he has to raise a son. And I'm like, maybe that's the thing that pushed him. His father dies. He has that pressure. And now he's like, I'm going to do something different with his son. And he did it for the first 15 years, right? So at that point, I was just like, man, it's okay. And then that freedom kind of helped me every other time I needed a hug. It's like, I'm not going to get it from him. I can't get it from him because I know who he is. I won't get it from him until his heart changes. So then I have to take that and say to my own heart, say to my own head, don't ask me for things we're not going to get, okay? I'm not saying that you don't need this right now, but look at all the other areas that can fill that hole, right? Big obvious area is Jesus. But another gift for me has been my family. Growing up with my parents, again, from humble beginnings, my family was my base for me to show up confidently, do anything. I knew going into any space as a little boy, I don't have confidence in and of myself, but the confidence I have is knowing that my mother and my father are behind me. That's the confidence I walked into spaces with. Not arrogantly, I had humility, Blaque Nubon, but I knew that I can greet an adult and look at them in the eye, shake their hand, because I have two people behind me who are my base. And when my dad broke that rattled my base. And I remember telling my wife that the David Beckham documentary helped me get language for what I'm saying now. I didn't know I had a base, needed one. But when I got married, my base came back.
Sure.
And so now I'm like, well, I'm not going to get a hug from my father. I'll get a hug from my wife. I'm not going to get a hug from my dad, but I'll get it from my daughter. I'm not going to get a hug from my father, but I'll get it from my friends. I'm not going to get a hug from my dad, but I'll get it from working with the Sisjabo. And, so I'm like, man, how do I show up as a man in all the spaces that, require me to be a man? There's a book by Jason Wilson, if I'm not butchering his surname, but it's called the man the moment demands.
Sure.
So every moment demands a different version of man in me. So my moment with my wife demands a very different man than this moment demands a different man. When I'm with my daughter, that moment demands a different man. And so I had to realize all these other moments that demand a different man in me, I can use those moments to get hugs in those moments, because I know I'm not going to get. So some people, their fathers are dead. You're not going to get that hug.
Ever.
I think let again be the man that every moment demands. You can find hugs in there. Some of us, like my dad, I know his address. He lives 20 minutes away from my house. I know I'm not going to get a hug from him until his heart changes. And so I need to then realize I still need hugs. It doesn't mean just because I know I'm not going to get it from him, it's going to suppress my need for a hug. No, my need for a hug is still there. But I need to know where to get it. Because if I don't get it, I'm going to act out.
Yeah.
Right? If I don't get that hug from Jesus, from my wife, from my daughter, from my friends, from colleagues and people that I work with, man, I'm going to go find that hug in a bottle. I'm going to go find that hug somewhere sniffing something, or I'm going to go find that hug in women's beds. Right? Yeah. So I need to make sure I find those spaces that can give me the hugs that I need so that I don't go looking for them somewhere else. So I would say that to men. I'd say pressing into those moments. Yeah.
Sure. Actually, you've covered what I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you to just address that little boy,
Yeah.
that who's just sitting there and his father is not there.
Yeah, sure.
So I just feel that you've already, covered that it's actually in that moment where you feel like, I'm just alone. I don't have anyone, but you have archives.
Yes.
That you can. There are people, we cannot take it for granted that there are people who do not have.
Yeah. Sure.
Who do not have.
Yeah.
There was no gogo, there was no one.
Nothing.
They just woke up. We are currently busy at church with this other a home for children, and every time I remember one day this young girl came to me. I don't forget that face. She came to me and she said, I want my mother. I want a visit from my mother. With me not understanding that I'm speaking to a child. And I'm the danger of giving her the hope that the mother is going to come. I spoke to her like faith, like a woman that's full of faith.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to a child. It hit me later that every Sunday she looks at me like,
where's my mom? Sure.
Every Sunday, that child looks at me and she's like, she comes to me, literally comes to me and looks right, inside my eyes and says, without saying any word, looks at me and say, agezanga na this week. Agezanga na last week.
Oh, Lord.
And until I asked about her, and then I was told that she's actually the one that was removed completely from parents because they were so abusive to her that they were declared by the court not to come.
For her. Yeah, sure.
Now I don't know what to say to this little girl that I've given this hope
yeah.
that the parents are going to come and see her. So there are situations like that where people find themselves and they honestly don't have anyone.
Yeah.
And that's when we tell them that Jesus Christ is the only solution that
and
we
you
know.
there. You there. You could have given her a hug. Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
And just express that. Then you realize that the depth and the hunger to get that hug from her mother or from her father, it's very deep.
No, it's deep.
It's a well taken. They are well taken care of. Those children. It's a well built home. It's a beautiful home. When you get there, everything is. It's they are well taken care of. But still, there's that hunger. The reason I was asking you is that in all that and everything that you're trying to do, I'm sure there is that hunger that you have. So I was just saying, just help someone who is just sitting there and say, I just need a hug from my dad. To say you may not get it from him. As you have clearly said, that you may not get it from him, but you can get it from your surrounding.
Sure.
So the other point that when I listen to the podcast, I hear a lot of men realizing the narcissism. That they just want to. It's just I don't remember the names. I thought when I catch, I'm going to be having the name. So there's one episode, and this man says, I realize how much I have hurt my woman by just wanting her to be there for me, and I'm never there for him. It's up until I realize that I'm also wrong. As a man, and I need to step up, to say I have to be there for her as much, avail myself, as much as she is availing herself towards me. So I think it's also important, and you've also touched on that, the availability, of a man to your surrounding and to your family, your children. It's vitally important. I think we have stretched our brains so much today. I think today because we've been shooting, but I just want to say, if people really want to know more, they can go to that husband podcast.
Definitely. It looks just search for this. Search for this. It's yellow and it just says That Husband Podcast. You'll find stuff there.
He's cracking himself there. But thank you so much.
No,
I think this has just been a beautiful day. We really appreciate. Please never get tired.
Thank you.
I'm glad that she's there. To say you can't give up. Let's continue. When she says, "Hey, I don't think this thing is working," you're saying, the beauty of working together as a family. We really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
And in her absentia, we really appreciate her and being there for you. It's as we are about to celebrate love. You are. The other day I was there's a photo of me and you and Temba. And then this other lady says to me, you have Katie, these men love their wives. I said, these ones love their wives. Mamela, if you want to, the epitome of men loving their wives is these two. So just forget, So that's how much I have learned the beauty of love, of a man loving their wives. You guys are just doing well, and you are doing amazing work, and we really appreciate you. And I pray that you God keeps on strengthening you guys and giving you the strength to please soldier on. Sometimes I was telling this other older man, and because he's my mentor, like I was saying, hey, I think I've reached the roof, I don't know, somehow I think I need brand new ideas. He says, no, Jab, come, let's meet. We have to talk. You cannot talk like that, because there are moments like that. But I'm grateful that there's the two of you, to pull each other and just keep on, please just keep on going and never stop. So, ladies and gentlemen, is that the right camera?
Yeah, it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's two books here that you're wondering what's about. These two books, these are two men that I learned a lot from. And if you want these books, please just there's the name there. It's Jabuzwane on socials, and it's also Bongani Mia on socials. If you guys want to have this book, these are great books. I've read them, and they are such a great portal of reference. If you really want to know a lot about the mindset and the man that I want to be. So those are just two men that I really look up to. And till we meet again, guys, thank you so much. Please tell somebody that there's That Husband podcast. Hey, kuno munyu sis no munyu puti no munyu sis 40. That Husband podcast. And thank you so much. And thank you for watching. And please like, share. We're still at that stage that like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Till we meet again, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mon.
Thank you.
I really appreciate this moment.
No,
I do not take it for granted.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank
Truly
you.
appreciate it. Yeah. It's good.